Hello everyone. Today I wanted to give you some intuition on the annuity formula. You'll need some prerequisite knowledge, nothing too difficult, but the first thing you'll need to know is the present value formula, which is present value equals future value over 1 plus the required rate to the nth power. So that right there. That may look familiar to some of you, it may not, but I'll go ahead and show you graphically kind of what's going on there. So you have a timeline right here. Here's year 0. And then we'll just call this time n, any time in the future. So right here what you have is you want to figure out how much whatever you're getting paid here costs right now. So right here's the future value. That's what you're getting paid. And so just for the sake, let's do a little quick example. Let's just say you're getting paid right here $100, and let's say this is 5 years from now, and let's just say the required rate of return is 10%. So what this is telling you is whatever, you can plug the numbers into this formula, whatever comes out here for the present value will be the amount you have to invest right now at a rate of 10% for 5 years, and if you invest that amount at 10% for 5 years, you will have $100. That's all it's telling you, is just how much you need to invest to achieve this amount, and alternatively, what this amount in the future is worth to you today. So that's the first kind of prerequisite thing you should know. The second thing is the formula for a perpetuity and the concept for it. So a perpetuity, it's an infinite series of payments. The typical way it's represented is C over R, which is a little bit of a neat formula for what it is. So it's an infinite series of payments, whereas this is just, end to end. It's start, end point. This goes on forever. And so it's got a series of payments that never end. And each of these payments, is C. On and on and on. And so that neatly sums up into this formula right here. This is, once again, the required rate of return, same R right there. All right, so if you can grasp those two things, now we're on to the main point of the video, which is to show you the intuition behind the annuity formula. So an annuity, very similar to a perpetuity, except the main difference, it has an endpoint. But let's kind of look at the formula for it first. And the typical formula you get in finance textbooks are, you start off with the perpetuity formula, right? And then they add in this junk right here. 1 minus 1 over 1 plus R to the nth power. And then we'll get into, they usually add like something for future value at the end, but I'll cover that in a minute just to keep things simple. So that probably looks horrible, and people are thinking at this point, like, I hate math. I can't understand it. Like, I'm just going to plug in the numbers and give it whatever, whatever it spits out, I'm going to use. They don't really put much thought into it because it just kind of seems overwhelming. But I think a good way to intuitively understand this is first look at the graph of it, right? So like I said, it's like a perpetuity except it has an endpoint. So on and on and on, and there's the end, okay? And so we'll just say it's got those fixed payments, C, 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 but it ends. And it ends at time n. So you're starting to see the similarity between these three, right? So this is just one payment with an endpoint. This is a series of payments with no endpoint, and this is a series of payments with an endpoint. So we're going to kind of use all these tools in our toolkit to figure out how to intuitively grasp this. The first thing I want to do now is transform this equation into something that might be a little bit more helpful. So we're going to multiply this out right here, and we're going to get C over R, which is just the perpetuity, remember that's right there, and then minus C over R to the 1 plus R, or to the nth power. So this is probably doesn't look that much better to you. Maybe some of you smart kids out there probably think, oh, okay, I get it now. I get where you're going with this. For some people, I think it still looks pretty messy, but we'll try to figure out where I'm going with this. So once again, I like very visual. I want to go back to the graphics here. So we'll draw a perpetuity. Why are we drawing a perpetuity? Because that's the first thing it says to do right there, right? That's a perpetuity. And this is annuity formula, so we don't want the whole thing, right? What do we want? We want it at time n, right? Cut it off right there. So cut off the perpetuity right here at time n. So what this formula is telling us actually is to cut off this little tail piece, and then we're left with it. We're backing into it basically. Like this whole thing is the perpetuity, but once we get rid of this tail piece, we're left with the annuity. And so that's what we want to try to do here. Now your next question is probably, okay, cool, but what is this tail piece? Like how do we figure that out? Well, once again, if you're really smart, you probably already picked up on it. You cover this right here, and it's just a little tiny annuity, or I'm sorry, a little tiny perpetuity. So that formula right here is C over R, right? That's C over R right there. But there's a key difference, right? This is in the future, it's smaller, it's got to be discounted to figure out what it's worth right here at time 0. But look on here, we have a toolkit for that, right? So instead of C over R, what if that was FV? What if that's future value, right? Then we can figure it out because we've got the formula for it. So instead of future value being discounted back, we're discounting back that little perpetuity, which, I mean, it's essentially the future value, right? So what that tail is worth, the tail equals C over R divided by 1 plus R to the nth power. That's what the tail equals, right? But we don't want the tail. So what we want is this right here. So what we do is we take the whole thing and then we subtract the tail from it, right? And so to do that, you take the whole thing, which is just the perpetuity formula, minus our tail formula right here, which is C over R to the 1 plus R to the nth power. And then once again, you can just factor the C over R out, C over R, and then you just get this. And that's how you do it right there. So that's kind of the simplified version. I'll go ahead and show you the full version of the annuity formula that is usually shown in textbooks. I think if you can get that, this isn't much of a jump, but I just wanted to keep it as simple as possible at first. So the full annuity formula is this. The annuity equals C over R times 1. Oops, that's shouldn't be doing this in pen. 1 minus 1 over 1 plus R to the n. Right, that's what we had, but there's usually an end payment, right? So at the very end, you have a series of payments, and then at the end, you also get a future value payment. You get a future value. And so what that looks like here is future value over 1 plus R to the n. So you add that little term on the end. What I want to do here is just, once again, transform it back into kind of these terms. I think it makes more intuitive sense. So we'll do C over R, multiply this out, minus C over R to the 1 plus R to the n. That is what we had earlier. I think that should make sense to you by now. And then we'll keep this right here, right? Don't do anything to this term yet. 1 plus R to the n. And so now we have that. That's our new formula. But the clever ones, once again, will figure out that these terms can be added, right? Because they have a common denominator. So you can go C over R, and then you can add plus future value minus C over R, 1 plus R to the n. All right, and so the reason this is plus is because we just essentially switched these around, right? So this future value went here, but this is still negative, but you're subtracting it out there. It's just, algebra. So this is our new formula, and I think this is still, it's still a little sloppy, but it's very much more intuitive than this monster right here. But if you look at this very carefully, you'll realize that, one, this right here is literally the exact, it's just a present value formula. So now all this is saying is that if you have an annuity with a series of payments up here, C, 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 but this time we're adding also another payment at the very end, a future value payment, how do we figure in this one? Well, we're not subtracting this one, right? Because we're getting paid this at the very end. So what we're going to do with this is actually add it. But okay, this is in the future still, so we have to discount it back. So we use this formula to figure out what this payment's going to be worth at in the present. And so we add this to our perpetuity formula. So that's where you get this. You get the whole perpetuity right here, and then you add that future value payment, but you subtract out the tail. That's all that is, and that's how you arrive at that formula right there. And so hopefully that makes intuitive sense to you now. I know it's kind of poorly explained, so I'm going to move this all into the camera. I know it's kind of poorly explained in finance classes and stuff, so I hope this gives you a better grasp and a better intuition on how an annuity works. Thank you.